First contact, the crash. The vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beneath the sleek silver craft of Ambassador Zira. Her four eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on her face, scanned the horizon with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Earth, a planet long observed but never contacted, loomed large in her view screen. Zira's mission was unprecedented. As the youngest diplomat of the Galactic Confederation, she had been chosen to make first contact with this isolated world. Her species, the Lyrians, prided themselves on their diplomatic skills, and Zira felt the weight of her entire civilization on her shoulders. Suddenly, alarms blared through the cockpit. Red lights flashed across her control panel as the ship shuddered violently. Warning: unknown energy signature detected. Shields failing, the ship's AI announced in its melodic voice. Zira's upper hands danced across the holographic interface while her lower pair gripped her seat. "Impossible," she muttered. "We're in protected space. Computer, initiate emergency landing protocols." The ship plummeted towards the planet's surface, trailing smoke and debris. Zira gritted her teeth, using all her piloting skills to guide the failing craft towards a small island that had appeared on her sensors. With a deafening roar, the ship plowed into a sandy beach, carving a deep furrow before coming to rest at the edge of a dense jungle. As the dust settled, Zira assessed her situation. The ship was a wreck, its communication array destroyed. She was stranded on an alien world, with no way to contact her people. Grabbing an emergency survival pack, she stumbled out of the craft, her blue-tinted skin glistening in Earth's unfamiliar sunlight. The humid air hit her like a wall, and she gasped, her respiratory system struggling to adapt. As she caught her breath, a movement at the edge of the jungle caught her attention. Zira froze, her hand instinctively reaching for her translator device. From the tree line emerged a figure unlike any Zira had seen before. It was tall, bipedal, with brown skin and a mop of dark hair on its head. The being wore tattered clothing and clutched a crude spear in its hands. Its eyes, a startling shade of green, were wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. A human. Zira's heart raced. This was precisely the scenario she had been trained to avoid. Direct, unplanned contact with a pre-spaceflight species. Yet, in her current predicament, she realized she might not have a choice. The human was the first to break the silence. It spoke, its words unintelligible to Zira, but its tone cautious and questioning. It gestured towards her ship, then back to her. Zira slowly raised her four hands, palms out, in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I mean you no harm," she said, knowing the human wouldn't understand her words, but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. To her surprise, the human lowered its spear and mimicked her gesture. It thumped its chest and uttered a single word repeatedly: "Max." Zira realized it was telling her its name. She pointed to herself and replied Zira. A smile broke across Max's face, transforming his features. He gestured for her to follow him, pointing towards the jungle. Zira hesitated, every diplomatic protocol she had learned screaming at her to maintain distance. But as she glanced back at her ruined ship, she knew her options were limited. With a silent apology to her superiors back home, she nodded and fell into step behind Max. As they trekked through the dense foliage, Zira's mind whirled with questions. How had this human ended up alone on this island? How long had he been here? And most pressingly, how would his presence complicate her mission to remain undetected while she waited for rescue? After about an hour of walking, they emerged into a small clearing. Zira's eyes widened as she took in the sight before her. A crude but ingenious shelter stood in the center, constructed from salvaged pieces of what appeared to be a small boat. Various handmade tools and weapons were scattered about, and a small garden of native plants grew in neat rows to one side. Max gestured proudly to his camp, then pointed to a small stream that ran along the edge of the clearing. He mimed drinking, inviting Zira to refresh herself. As Zira cautiously approached the stream, marveling at the human's survival skills. A distant rumble caught her attention. She looked up, her extra-sensitive hearing picking up a sound that Max had yet to notice. It was a sound she recognized all too well: spacecraft entering the atmosphere. Panic gripped her as she realized the implications. Those ships weren't Confederation vessels coming to her rescue. No, these had to be the same hostiles that had shot her down, and they were coming to finish the job. Zira turned to Max, who was now looking at her with concern, having finally heard the approaching ships. In that moment, Zira made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives and potentially the fate of two civilizations. She grabbed Max's hand, pointing urgently towards the sky and then to his shelter. Somehow, the human understood. His eyes hardened with determination, and he nodded quickly, beginning to gather his most important tools and weapons. As the roar of the approaching ships grew louder, Zira helped Max disguise the entrance to his shelter. They worked in frantic silence, using vegetation and debris to camouflage the structure. Just as they finished, the first ship appeared overhead, its sleek, predatory form a stark contrast to Zira's diplomatic vessel. Max pulled Zira into the shelter, and they huddled together in the dark, cramped space. Zira could feel the human's rapid heartbeat and smell the fear-induced sweat on his skin. Yet despite his terror, he positioned himself protectively in front of her, his crude spear held ready. The sound of the ships was deafening now. Zira could hear the whine of anti-gravity engines as they hovered over the beach where her ship had crashed. There was a series of loud explosions, and she knew with a sinking feeling that the hostiles were destroying the evidence of her landing. For hours, they remained hidden as the ships methodically searched the island. Zira marveled at Max's ingenuity. His shelter, while simple, was remarkably effective at masking their heat signatures and scent. As night fell, the ships finally departed, leaving behind an eerie silence. When they finally emerged from hiding, Zira saw the destruction left in the wake of the search. Large swaths of the jungle had been burned or flattened. Her ship was nothing more than a smoking crater on the beach. Max placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, and when she turned to look at him, she saw not pity in his eyes, but a fierce determination. He pointed to himself, then to her, and made a gesture that unmistakably meant together. In that moment, Zira realized that her mission had irrevocably changed. She was no longer just an observer of humanity. She had become an active participant in their story. And this human, this remarkable, resourceful being, was now her ally in a conflict that threatened not just her, but potentially his entire world. As they stood together on the beach, watching the last traces of the hostile ships disappear into the night sky, Zira knew that the real challenge was just beginning. She had to find a way to contact her people, warn them of this new threat, and do it all while protecting Max and the secret of humanity's first contact with alien life. The diplomat in her recoiled at the monumental breach of protocol. The survivor in her was simply grateful for Max's help, and a small, unexpected part of her was exhilarated by the prospect of working alongside this fascinating example of humanity. Whatever came next, Zira knew one thing for certain: her view of humanity and her role in the galaxy would never be the same again. Unlikely alliance. Zira's ship plummeted through Earth's atmosphere, trailing smoke and debris. With all her piloting skills, she managed to guide the failing craft towards a small, isolated island. The impact was jarring, carving a deep furrow in the sandy beach before coming to rest at the jungle's edge. As the dust settled, Zira emerged from the wreckage, her blue-tinted skin glistening in Earth's unfamiliar sunlight. The humid air hit her like a wall, her respiratory system struggling to adapt. As she caught her breath, a movement at the edge of the jungle caught her attention. From the tree line emerged Max, a human unlike any Zira had imagined. Tall and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and a wild mane of dark hair, he approached cautiously, a crude spear in hand. His green eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. Their first interaction was a dance of gestures and unintelligible words. Zira's translator had been damaged in the crash, leaving her to rely on body language and tone. Surprisingly, Max seemed to understand her peaceful intentions, lowering his spear and offering a tentative smile. As the sound of approaching hostile ships filled the air, Max didn't hesitate. He led Zira to his hidden shelter, a marvel of human ingenuity constructed from salvaged materials. Together, they concealed themselves as the enemy searched the island, destroying evidence of Zira's arrival. In the days that followed, an unlikely alliance began to form. Max, using patience and creativity, began to teach Zira rudimentary English. Zira, in turn, shared what she could about her mission and the threat they faced, using drawings in the sand and gestures to convey complex ideas. Their first major collaboration came when Zira realized she needed to contact her people. Her ship's communication array was destroyed, but perhaps with Max's help and his knowledge of Earth materials, they could construct a makeshift transmitter. Max proved to be an invaluable partner. His resourcefulness continually amazed Zira. Where she saw insurmountable technological gaps, he saw opportunities for innovative solutions. He fashioned tools from wood and stone with remarkable precision, allowing them to salvage and repurpose parts from both Zira's emergency beacon and an old radio he had scavenged years ago. As they worked side by side, Zira found her preconceptions about humanity constantly challenged. Max's adaptability, his unwavering spirit in the face of adversity, and his capacity for trust were unlike anything she had encountered in her diplomatic career. One evening, as they sat by a small fire outside their shelter, Max surprised Zira by initiating a conversation about their respective worlds. Through a combination of broken English, gestures, and drawings, he managed to ask about her home. Zira hesitated, acutely aware of the potential consequences of sharing such information. But looking at Max's open, curious face, she made a decision. Using the stars as a visual aid, she began to explain the vastness of the galaxy, pointing out the general direction of her homeworld. Max listened with rapt attention, his eyes wide with wonder. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he pointed to himself, then to the stars, and raised his eyebrows in a clear question. The implication was clear. He was asking if he could see her world someday. Zira felt a pang in her heart. The likelihood of that happening, given Confederation laws, was virtually non-existent. But she couldn't bring herself to extinguish the hope in Max's eyes. Instead, she simply smiled and nodded, patting his hand gently. As weeks passed, their progress on the communication array was slow but steady. Zira estimated they were about halfway to creating a device capable of sending a signal to her people. However, their work was not without setbacks. One day, as they were foraging for food, they heard the now familiar sound of spacecraft entering the atmosphere. They rushed back to their cave, hearts pounding, and watched from their hidden vantage point as 3 ships methodically swept the island. The search lasted for hours, with the ships using advanced scanning technology to comb every inch of the terrain. Zira and Max huddled in the deepest part of the cave, hardly daring to breathe. It was only due to the unique mineral composition of the cliff that they remained undetected. When the ships finally departed, the reality of their situation hit home hard. They weren't just hiding to protect the secret of first contact anymore. They were evading a very real, very dangerous threat. The hostile force, whoever they were determined to find Zira, and they weren't giving up. That night, as they sat in somber silence by their small fire, Max did something unexpected. He reached out and took Zira's hand in his, squeezing it gently. The gesture transcended their linguistic and cultural barriers, conveying comfort and solidarity. Zira felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the fire. In that moment, she realized that despite their vast differences, despite the potential consequences, she had come to trust this human completely. More than that, she had come to care for him. As she looked at Max's profile, illuminated by the flickering firelight, Zira made a silent vow. She would find a way to contact her people, not just for her own sake, but for Max's, for humanity's. Whatever threat these hostiles posed, It was clear that Earth was now in their sights, and Zero was determined to protect this remarkable world and its even more remarkable inhabitants. With renewed determination, they threw themselves into their work on the communication array. Max began taking risks, venturing further from their hideout to scavenge materials from the wreckage left by the hostile ships. Each time he returned, Zero felt a mixture of relief and guilt, relief at his safety, and guilt at the danger she was putting him in. But Max never complained. If anything, he seemed energized by their shared purpose. His creativity in repurposing the alien technology constantly amazed Zero. Where she saw insurmountable technological gaps, he saw opportunities for innovative solutions. As they neared completion of their project, Zero couldn't help but reflect on the irony of her situation. She had come to Earth to observe humanity from afar, to gauge their readiness for galactic citizenship. Instead, she found herself in a life-or-death partnership with one of them, witnessing firsthand the very qualities that made humans unique in the galaxy. Whatever came next, whether they succeeded in contacting the Confederation or not, Zero knew that her report on humanity would be forever changed by her experiences with Max. And as she watched him work, his face set in concentration as he delicately soldered a connection on their makeshift device, she felt a surge of something she had never expected to feel towards a primitive species. Admiration, respect, and something that felt dangerously close to love. The galaxy was changing, and humanity, Zero realized, would play a far greater role in that change than anyone in the Confederation had ever anticipated. All that remained was to send the message and hope that someone would hear it in time. The invasion begins. As Zero and Max's tentative alliance began to form, the distant rumble of spacecraft shattered their moment of understanding. Zero's four eyes widened in alarm, recognizing the sound all too well. She gestured urgently to Max, pointing at the sky and then mimicking an explosion. Max's expression hardened with comprehension. Without hesitation, he grabbed Zero's hand and led her swiftly into the dense jungle. They moved with urgency, Max's feet finding purchase on the uneven terrain while Zero stumbled, her alien physiology ill-suited for the environment. The canopy above them rustled as sleek, dark ships passed overhead. Zero could hear the hum of their energy weapons powering up. Her heart raced, knowing these weren't rescue ships from the Confederation. These are the hostiles that had shot her down, and they were here to finish the job. Max guided them to a hidden cave, its entrance obscured by thick vines and foliage. As they huddled in the darkness, the sound of destruction echoed outside. Trees splintered, and the ground shook with impacts. Zero's ship, and any evidence of her arrival, was being systematically obliterated. Hours passed before the chaos subsided. When they finally emerged, the devastation was evident. Large swaths of the jungle had been scorched, and a smoking crater marked where Zero's ship had been. The message was clear. The invaders were thorough, and they weren't leaving anything to chance. In the days that followed, Zero and Max worked tirelessly to establish a means of communication. Using drawings in the sand and an ever-expanding vocabulary of gestures, Zero conveyed the gravity of their situation. Earth wasn't just facing the loss of its isolation, it was on the brink of invasion. Max's reaction surprised Zero. Instead of fear or despair, his green eyes blazed with determination. He pointed to himself, then to Zero, and made a gesture that unmistakably meant fight. His resolve stirred something in Zero. She had come to Earth as an observer, but now she found herself committed to its defense. Their first priority was to warn others. Max led Zero to a battered old radio he had salvaged years ago. Though primitive by Confederation standards, Zero saw potential. With Max's innovative spirit and her advanced knowledge, they began the painstaking process of modifying the radio to broadcast on interstellar frequencies. As they worked, Zero marveled at human ingenuity. Where she saw insurmountable technological gaps, Max found creative solutions. He fashioned delicate tools from wood and stone, allowing them to manipulate the radio's intricate components. His adaptability and resourcefulness constantly amazed her. Weeks passed, marked by progress and setbacks. They took turns keeping watch, alert for any sign of the invaders' return. During quiet moments, they continued to learn about each other's worlds. Zero used the stars to explain the vastness of the galaxy, while Max shared Earth's rich mythology through drawings and gestures. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly. One night, as they fine-tuned their makeshift transmitter, it crackled to life. Amidst the static, they heard fragments of communication, not in any Earth language, but in the common tongue of the galactic community. The invaders were coordinating their next move. Zora's blood ran cold as she translated for Max. The hostile force wasn't just searching for her. They were preparing for a full-scale invasion of Earth. Humanity's isolation had been its protection, but now that shield was shattered. Max's reaction was immediate. He grabbed their makeshift pack of supplies and gestured towards the coast. His meaning was clear. They needed to leave the island, to warn his people. Zira hesitated. Every regulation and protocol she had been taught screaming at her to minimize contact and wait for rescue. But as she looked at Max's determined face, at the trust and resolve in his eyes, she made her decision. Earth deserved a chance to defend itself, and if anyone could rally humanity's defenses, it was someone like Max, resourceful, brave, and uniquely adapted to crisis. With a nod, Zira agreed to Max's plan. They quickly gathered their essential supplies, including the portable version of their communication array. As dawn broke, they set out on a makeshift raft Max had constructed from salvaged materials. The journey from their isolated sanctuary to the nearest human settlement was harrowing. They battled rough seas and narrowly avoided detection by patrol ships that occasionally darkened the sky. Zira found herself relying on Max's survival skills and intimate knowledge of Earth's environment. As they neared the coast of a larger island, the scale of the invasion became apparent. Dark ships hung in the sky like ominous clouds, their presence a stark contrast to the beauty of Earth's blue atmosphere. Plumes of smoke rose from distant cities, evidence of the first wave of attacks. Max's face was grim as he took in the sight of his world under siege, but there was no fear in his eyes, only a steely determination that Zira had come to admire. As they beached their raft on a secluded cove, Max turned to Zira and pointed to the horizon, then made a fist. The message was clear. This was where they would make their stand. Zira nodded, feeling a surge of emotions she had never expected to experience on this mission. She had come to Earth as a distant observer, tasked with evaluating humanity's readiness for galactic citizenship. Instead, she found herself standing shoulder to shoulder with a human, prepared to fight for Earth's survival. As they made their way inland, avoiding patrol ships and seeking out pockets of human resistance, Zira reflected on the irony of her situation. She had been sent to judge humanity's worthiness, but in Max, and in the determination she saw in the faces of the humans they encountered, she found a spirit that humbled her. These beings, technologically primitive by Confederation standards, possessed a resilience and adaptability that might just be the key to their survival. The invasion had begun, but Earth's story was far from over. With Max by her side, Zira was determined to give humanity the fighting chance it deserved. As they approached the first human settlement, ready to share their knowledge of the invaders, Zira felt a mix of trepidation and hope. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and she, an alien diplomat turned unlikely ally, would play a part in shaping that revelation. Humanity unites. As Zira and Max emerged from the jungle onto the outskirts of a small coastal town, the true scale of the invasion became apparent. Dark ships loomed in the sky, their ominous presence a stark contrast to the picturesque Earth setting. Plumes of smoke rose from distant cities, evidence of the first wave of attacks. Max's face was a mix of shock and determination as he took in the sight of his world under siege. He turned to Zira, his green eyes filled with a silent question. She nodded, understanding his unspoken request. It was time to warn his people. They cautiously made their way into the town, keeping to the shadows to avoid detection. The streets were in chaos, with people running in panic and confusion. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, and the occasional boom of explosions punctuated the air. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of local police officers trying to maintain order. The officers froze at the sight of Zira, their hands instinctively reaching for their weapons. Max stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture, and began to speak rapidly in his language. Zira watched in amazement as Max, with a combination of words, gestures, and drawings in the dirt, managed to convey the essence of their situation. He pointed to Zira, then to the sky, and made a series of exploding noises. The officers' expressions shifted from suspicion to disbelief, then to a grudging acceptance. One of the officers, an older man with a weathered face, stepped forward. He spoke to Max, then turned to Zira and gave a curt nod. Max translated as best he could. They were being taken to the local government officials. As they were escorted through the town, Zira saw humanity's response to crisis firsthand. Despite the panic, people were coming together. Neighbors helped each other, strangers offered comfort, and impromptu rescue teams formed to search damaged buildings. They arrived at the town hall, now a makeshift command center. Inside, harried officials huddled around maps and communication equipment. When Zira entered, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to the alien in their midst. For a moment, Zira felt the weight of her diplomatic training. This was first contact on a scale she had never imagined. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and began to speak, knowing they wouldn't understand her words, but hoping her intent would be clear. To her surprise, one of the officials, a young woman with short dark hair, approached with a tablet in hand. She spoke to Max, who then gestured to Zira to continue speaking. As Zira talked, the woman's fingers flew over the tablet's screen. Suddenly, a robotic voice emanated from the tablet, translating Zira's words into English. The room erupted in a flurry of activity. Questions flew from all directions as Zira explained the nature of the invasion, the technology of the hostile forces, and the urgent need for a global response. Hours passed as Zira shared everything she knew. The officials coordinated with other government centers, disseminating the information across the country and then the world. Zira watched in awe as humanity began to unite in the face of this existential threat. As night fell, news came that world leaders were convening an emergency global summit. They requested Zira's presence to address the assembly. Max, refusing to leave her side, was going too. Their journey to the summit was a whirlwind of military escorts and high-security protocols. Zira marveled at how quickly humans could mobilize when united by a common cause. The plane ride gave her a bird's-eye view of the ongoing invasion, cities under siege, refugee caravans on highways, and pockets of resistance forming worldwide. When they arrived at the United Nations headquarters, Zira felt a mix of trepidation and hope. As she stepped onto the podium, facing the assembled leaders of Earth, she realized the magnitude of this moment. Her words could determine the fate of this world. Taking a deep breath, Zira began to speak, her words translated and broadcast to billions around the globe. She explained the nature of the galactic community, the laws that governed first contact, and the unprecedented nature of this hostile invasion. But more than that, she spoke of what she had learned from Max and the humans she had encountered. She spoke of their resilience, their ingenuity, and their capacity for unity in the face of adversity. She told them that while the road ahead would be difficult, she believed that humanity had the strength and spirit to prevail. As she finished her address, the assembly hall erupted in a standing ovation. World leaders, setting aside their differences, began to formulate a global strategy for resistance. Zira watched in amazement as age-old rivalries were put aside in the face of this common threat. In the days that followed, Earth transformed. Military forces worldwide were mobilized and restructured based on Zira's intel. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, adapting Zira's knowledge to enhance Earth's defensive capabilities. A global early warning system was established, using Zira and Max's makeshift communication array as a model. Throughout it all, Max remained by Zira's side, bridging the gap between her alien perspective and human understanding. His quick thinking and adaptability proved invaluable as they raced against time to prepare Earth's defenses. As they worked, Zira couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come from that first moment on the beach. She had arrived on Earth as an observer, tasked with judging humanity's readiness for the galactic stage. Instead, she found herself standing with them, fighting for their survival. The invasion had begun, but humanity was no longer facing it alone. United by adversity and armed with new knowledge, Earth prepared to make its stand. As Zira looked out at the determined faces around her, she felt a surge of hope. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and she, an alien diplomat turned unlikely ally, would be there to witness it. The battle for Earth. As dawn broke over the horizon, the world stood on the precipice of its greatest challenge. Zira and Max found themselves at the heart of Earth's defense strategy, working tirelessly alongside military leaders and scientists from across the globe. The knowledge Zira had shared about the invaders' technology and tactics had given humanity a fighting chance, but the odds were still overwhelmingly against them. The first major counteroffensive was launched at noon. Earth's combined air forces, newly equipped with modifications based on Zira's insights, engaged the alien fleet over the Atlantic. The battle was fierce and chaotic, with human pilots demonstrating remarkable skill and adaptability in the face of superior technology. Zira watched from a command center, her 4 eyes darting between holographic displays of the battle. She felt a surge of pride as human fighters executed maneuvers that caught the invaders off guard. Max stood beside her, relaying her observations and suggestions to the commanders. As the sky lit up with explosions and falling debris, a cheer went up in the command center. The first alien dreadnought had been brought down, crash landing in the ocean. It was a small victory, but it ignited a spark of hope that spread like wildfire across the globe. However, the invaders were quick to retaliate. They launched a devastating attack on major cities worldwide, targeting power grids and communication networks. The world plunged into darkness as blackouts swept across continents. In this moment of crisis, humanity's spirit truly shone. Communities came together, sharing resources and supporting one another. Zira marveled at the resilience she witnessed, people finding innovative ways to communicate, to provide aid, to resist. Max took charge of a group of civilian volunteers, coordinating relief efforts and improvising communication systems. His quick thinking and natural leadership abilities saved countless lives. Zira found herself in awe of his capacity to inspire hope in others, even in the darkest of times. As the battle raged on, Zira made a startling discovery. Analyzing data from downed alien ships, she realized that the invaders' technology had a critical weakness. Their systems were vulnerable to a specific frequency of electromagnetic pulse. This information could turn the tide of the war, but implementing it would require a level of global cooperation unprecedented in human history. Zira and Max presented their findings to world leaders in an emergency session. The plan was audacious: to create a network of EMP generators around the globe, synchronizing them to fire simultaneously and disable the alien fleet. It would require every nation to contribute resources and expertise, setting aside old rivalries for the sake of survival. To Zira's amazement, the leaders agreed. In a matter of days, a global effort unlike anything in human history was underway. Scientists and engineers from every corner of the Earth worked around the clock, repurposing existing infrastructure and developing new technologies at an astonishing pace. Max was at the forefront of this effort, his unique perspective as Zira's companion, allowing him to bridge the gap between alien knowledge and human innovation. His ability to think outside the box led to breakthrough after breakthrough, earning him the respect and admiration of some of the brightest minds on the planet. As the day of reckoning approached, tension mounted. The alien forces, sensing that humanity was planning something, intensified their attacks. Cities burned and casualties mounted, but with each setback, humans seemed to find new reserves of strength and determination. Finally, after weeks of feverish preparation, the global EMP network was ready. As the alien fleet gathered for what they intended to be a final devastating assault, humanity held its breath. Zira and Max stood side by side in the main control room, their hands hovering over the activation switch. With a shared look of determination, they initiated the countdown. Around the world, millions watched and waited, their hopes riding on this one desperate gambit. The pulse, when it came, was anticlimactic, a mere flicker of lights and a brief hum of energy. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to fall from the sky. The scene that unfolded was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Massive vessels plummeted to Earth, some breaking apart in the atmosphere, others crash-landing in oceans and uninhabited areas. The coordination of the global community in those moments was nothing short of miraculous, as they worked to minimize casualties and damage. As the dust settled, a stunned silence fell over the world. Then, gradually, the realization dawned. They had won. The invasion was over. Cheers erupted from every corner of the globe, a cacophony of joy and relief that seemed to shake the very foundations of the Earth. In the control room, Zira and Max embraced, overcome with emotion. Their unlikely partnership had been the catalyst for this victory, a testament to what could be achieved when different worlds came together. But even as celebration began, Zira knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy now knew of Earth's existence, and humanity would need to find its place among the stars. As she looked at Max, saw the mixture of triumph and wonder in his eyes, she realized that she wanted to be there every step of the way, helping to guide Earth into this new era. The battle for Earth was won, but the journey into the cosmic community was just beginning. And Zira, once an impartial observer, now found herself inextricably linked to the fate of this remarkable world and its even more remarkable inhabitants. The battle for Earth. As dawn broke over the horizon, the world stood on the precipice of its greatest challenge. Zira and Max found themselves at the heart of Earth's defense strategy, working tirelessly alongside military leaders and scientists from across the globe. The knowledge Zira had shared about the invaders' technology and tactics had given humanity a fighting chance, but the odds were still overwhelmingly against them. The first major counteroffensive was launched at noon. Earth's combined air forces, newly equipped with modifications based on Zira's insights, engaged the alien fleet over the Atlantic. The battle was fierce and chaotic, with human pilots demonstrating remarkable skill and adaptability in the face of superior technology. Container Part 6. Part 6. A New Era Dawns. As the dust settled on the global battlefield, Earth found itself in a state of stunned silence. The remnants of the alien invasion force lay scattered across the planet, a testament to humanity's unlikely victory. Zira and Max stood atop a hill overlooking a sprawling refugee camp, watching as humans from all walks of life worked together to rebuild and recover. The weeks following the final battle were a whirlwind of activity. Governments worldwide mobilized to address the immediate needs of their populations: shelter, food, and medical care for the millions displaced by the conflict. But amidst the chaos of reconstruction, a new sense of global unity emerged, born from the shared experience of facing an existential threat. Zira found herself at the center of this new world order, her role evolving from wartime advisor to peacetime ambassador. World leaders sought her counsel on everything from reverse engineering alien technology to establishing protocols for future extraterrestrial contact. She marveled at humanity's resilience and adaptability, watching as they took the ruins of invasion and transformed them into stepping stones for advancement. Max, ever at her side, had become a symbol of human ingenuity and courage. His quick thinking and innovative solutions during the war had saved countless lives and turned the tide of many battles. Now, he led teams of scientists and engineers in studying the alien wreckage, his unique perspective bridging the gap between Earth technology and the advanced systems of the invaders. One morning, as they oversaw the excavation of a downed alien ship, Max turned to Zira with a question that had been brewing since the end of the war. "What happens now?" he asked, his green eyes searching her four-eyed gaze. "With Earth, with us, with the galaxy." Zira took a moment to consider her response. The truth was, she wasn't entirely sure. Her mission parameters had been shattered the moment she crash-landed on this planet. The Galactic Confederation's non-interference policies lay in ruins, much like the alien ships scattered across Earth's surface. "Earth can no longer remain isolated," she began carefully. "The galaxy knows you're here now, and they've seen what you're capable of. Some will be afraid, others curious, but all will be watching to see what you do next." Max nodded thoughtfully. "And the Confederation? Will they welcome us or see us as a threat?" Zira felt a surge of affection for this human who had become so much more than just an ally. "That," she said with a smile, "is where we come in. Together, we can help guide Earth's first steps into the galactic community." As if on cue, Zira's makeshift communicator buzzed, a signal she had been both anticipating and dreading. The Confederation had finally made contact. Their message was clear. A delegation was en route to Earth to assess the situation and determine the planet's status in the wake of the invasion. The news spread quickly, and within hours, world leaders convened an emergency session. Zira found herself addressing the United Nations once again, this time preparing them for their first official contact with the galactic community. "Remember," she emphasized, "you've already proven yourselves on the galactic stage. You faced an invasion force that has terrorized multiple star systems and emerged victorious. You have earned your place among the stars." As the day of the Confederation's arrival approached, Earth buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Zira worked tirelessly with global leaders to prepare, while Max coordinated a team to create a suitable landing zone for the alien delegation. When the Confederation ships finally appeared in Earth's skies, they were met not with fear, but with a cautious optimism. The landing site was crowded with dignitaries, scientists, and media from every nation. At the forefront stood Zira and Max, ready to bridge the gap between Earth and the wider galaxy. As the sleek diplomatic vessel touched down and the delegation emerged, Zira felt a momentary pang of uncertainty. How would her superiors react to her unorthodox handling of the situation? But as she glanced at Max, saw the determination in his stance and the trust in his eyes, she knew she had made the right choices. The lead diplomat, a tall, ethereal being, approached them. Its multifaceted eyes took in the scene before settling on Zira and Max. When it spoke, its voice was melodious and filled with a hint of amusement. "Ambassador Zira," it said, "it seems your mission of observation took quite an unexpected turn." Zira straightened, her voice steady as she replied, "Indeed, honored one. I present to you the planet Earth and its people, who have more than demonstrated their readiness to join the galactic community." The diplomat's gaze shifted to Max, who met its eyes without flinching. "And this is?" "Max," Zira said proudly, "my partner and Earth's representative. Without him, and the ingenuity of his people, we might not be standing here today." What followed was a historic moment, the first official dialogue between Earth and the Galactic Confederation. As discussions unfolded, it became clear that humanity's defeat of the invasion force had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Earth was no longer viewed as a primitive, isolated world, but as a potential powerhouse in galactic politics. In the months and years that followed, Earth underwent a transformation unlike anything in its history. The integration of alien technology accelerated human advancement by centuries. The first human embassy was established on a distant world, with Max as its inaugural ambassador and Zira as his advisor. Yet, for all the monumental changes, some things remained beautifully constant. Zira watched with joy as humans continued to display the same spirit, creativity, and resilience that had first drawn her to them. Max, despite his new responsibilities, never lost his sense of wonder at the universe. As they stood together on the observation deck of Earth's first faster-than-light ship, preparing to embark on a journey to the Galactic Confederation's capital, Zira reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. From a crashed ship on a lonely beach to the threshold of a new era for humanity, it had been an adventure beyond her wildest imagination. Max took her hand, his touch as reassuring as it had been in those first desperate days on the island. "Ready for our next adventure?" he asked, his green eyes twinkling with excitement. Zira squeezed his hand, her four eyes taking in the stars that now promised not isolation, but connection. "With you," she said, "I'm ready for anything." As the ship's engines hummed to life and Earth receded behind them, Zira knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them with the same spirit that had allowed them to triumph against impossible odds. And she, once an impartial observer, now bound to this remarkable species by bonds of friendship, love, and shared experience, would be there every step of the way. The invasion had ended, but humanity's true journey was just beginning. As they accelerated towards the stars, Zira felt a sense of anticipation and hope. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would she. Together with Max and the indomitable human spirit, she looked forward to shaping this new era, an era of exploration, cooperation, and endless possibilities.